Chapter 381. In comfortable bliss, Bradley closed his eyes and enjoyed the comfort brought about by the boiling sensation within him. On the other hand, Derek honestly told his mother his plan to go to Xanthalos. Absolutely not. Derek, you can't go. Margaret's and Yasmin's expressions instantly darkened. What did you promise me this morning? Even the professionals ran into trouble and you're just an amateur who knows nothing about it. Aren't you just asking for trouble? Stay home for the next couple of days. You're not allowed to go anywhere, Margaret barked. But Mr. Nash had asked if I would go. I think this is a test for me. If I don't go, I won't ever be called ever again. Bradley is a close confidant of the Youngs. Do you have any idea how much money he has? He has 20 billion, Derek argued. He grew up in a single-parent household. His mother had to support and raise him and his sister. When he got into fights in school, it was because his classmates had mocked him for not having a father. They laughed at him for being a bastard and being dirt poor. Since he was a child, he had vowed that he would make a lot of money when he grew up. However, reality was often cruel. He had no academic talent. He was expelled for stirring trouble even before he graduated from elementary school. Later, he was bewitched by Hollywood movies and followed a group of delinquents in hopes of becoming a famous actor. After a few years, not only did he fail to make any money, but he also found himself in significant debt. The debt eventually led to more trouble. When he was in his 30s, he finally made the decision to work in a factory to earn money. 10 years or so ago, if he were to earn $7,000 to $8,000 a month, it might have been something people would gossip about. However, if he were to mention it during dates now, he would be looked down on. He refused to accept the situation and was tortured by the cruel truth of reality. With the help of the Youngs, Yasmin had started her own company. However, he had still accomplished nothing. He had begun to wonder if he had to rely on his younger sister to support himself. When Nash asked him by name if he wanted to go to Xanthalos, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He did not want to let go of this chance. No means no. So what if you can make more money? Just look at Joel. Is money worth losing your life? Margaret was shaking with anger. Joel was Nico's late father. Mom, I've made up my mind. Derek's tone was firm. He did not want to live idly all his life. You idiot. Margaret was so angry that she grabbed the thermos on the bedside table and smashed it. A stray piece hit Derek on the forehead, and he began to bleed. Mom! Yasmin was frightened and quickly helped her mother, who was trying to get out of bed. Let me go. I'm going to beat my disobedient son. Haven't you given me enough trouble over the years? Margaret burst into tears. Even though Derek had been disobedient all his life and suffered a lot, he was still her son. His $300,000 debt was cleared due to her frugal ways. Now that Derek had finally found a stable job, he began to consider reckless activities again. She was not afraid that her son would be poor for the rest of his life, but rather that he would never return. Mom, I'm sorry. Derek fell to his knees before Margaret. Then, he got up and ran out of the room. You asshole, come back! Margaret immediately tried to get out of bed and chase after him, but her arms were held back tightly by Yasmin, who cried, Mom, just let him go. If Grandpa were still alive, he'd have let Derek go. Chapter 382. He'll die. He's going to die. He's your brother. Why didn't you stop him? Margaret wailed. Yasmin pursed her lips, hugged her mother tightly, and cried together. In the living room, Derek leaned against the wall and listened to his mother's and sister's cries as his heart ached. He walked to his grandfather's grave and silently prayed for his blessing. The next day, it was still dark at Perry's funeral parlor. Bradley sat on the ground as he prayed. Son, don't blame me for not helping you with your funeral. As your father, I will avenge you. The tomb of the King of Medicine will absolutely not be preempted by others. Bradley glanced at the black and white photo of his son in front of the coffin and could not help but shed tears. Dad, may you find peace and comfort. You didn't get to enjoy your blessings, so let me enjoy them for you. Nico knelt on the ground and prayed. Bradley slapped Nico on the back of the head and said angrily, You brat, can't you say something nicer? Nico sniffed and whispered, Grandpa, Mr. Nash and the others are here. Bradley stood up and said, Let's go. There was a single black off-road car in the parking lot. Nico and Bradley had already loaded their luggage into the car. As soon as they opened the car door, they saw Nico's mother sitting in the car. She said expressionlessly, Dad, I don't care if you go, but you can take Nico with you. She had just lost her husband and did not want to lose her son too. Bradley's lips trembled as he said, Zara, Nico was born with an impressive sense of smell. He was born for this. The woman stared at Bradley coldly. Was killing your own son not good enough for you? Do you want to get Nico killed too? In her point of view, Bradley was the cause of her husband's death. Nico said timidly, Mom, it's because Dad died in the tomb of the King of Medicine. That's why we're going there to find out the truth. We're also doing this to fulfill Dad's wish. Shut your mouth, Zara snapped. Nico quickly tightened his lips. Zara glared at Bradley and threatened, If you dare take Nico with you today, then I'll set your son's funeral parlor on fire. You don't make the decisions in the Perry family. Bradley was starting to get angry too, hence his cold demeanor. At this moment, a woman named Ophelia walked over with a teenage girl. Bradley, take my daughter with you, Ophelia said as she pushed her daughter into the car. Ophelia, are you mad? Zara stared at Ophelia dumbfoundedly. She was trying her best not to let Bradley take Nico, but Ophelia, on the other hand, was willingly offering her own daughter to go. They were going to rob a grave. She looked at Ophelia's daughter and thought, She's just 16. What else am I supposed to do? She's the only Sanders heir. Both her grandfather and father were in this industry too, so obviously, I can't break the tradition, right? Ophelia glanced at Zara and then at Bradley, who had an ashen expression, before realizing the situation at hand. She quickly comforted Zara. Don't worry, Zara. Look at it this way. Even if you stop Nico this time, there's no guarantee that you can stop him for the rest of his life. Let them go now when they're still young and energetic. Getting some experience now may not be a bad thing. You just have to be more open about this. I can't. Zara crossed her arms around her chest and turned her head to the side. This industry was inherently disgraceful, and the money her father-in-law had earned was sufficient for generations to enjoy. She could not understand why Bradley wanted Nico to go on this risky venture. Chapter 383. Outside the residential area, Zeno swapped the car into a brand new off-road Porsche. Derek walked over to the car's window empty-handed. Zeno looked at the wound on Derek's forehead and asked, What happened there? I ran into a door, Derek grinned. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a beautiful woman in the back seat, which caused his eyes to brighten with interest. Mr. Nash, is this your girlfriend? I'm a trusted descendant of the Youngs like you, Melody replied, then picked up a bottle of water to moisten her throat. The off-road vehicle had 6 seats. Nash pointed to the back seat. Go sit there. Derek climbed into the car and immediately greeted Finn. Hello. Finn smiled and replied, Hello. What's your name? I'm Derek Judd. And you? Pfft. Melody spat out a mouthful of water. Ah ha ha. I'm so sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. She laughed as she apologized. Derek. It was such an old-school name to her. Finn squeezed his thigh to refrain himself from bursting out in laughter and said in a deep voice, I'm Finn, it's nice to meet you. Derek was a descendant of the Youngs like Melody, but she was worth billions compared to him. The two were incomparable. It's nice to meet you too, Finn. Derek was used to people laughing at his name, so he just asked, Who's the woman in the front seat? Melody pouted and said, You're probably 30 years old at least, right? Can't you speak to me with more respect? Derek smiled awkwardly. Sorry, I'm not too good with words. I'm Melody Stone. Fresh and young in my 20s. Melody introduced herself with a smile. Nash could not help but laugh. You're 28. Fresh and young in your 20s refers to a beautiful lady who has just turned 20. Aren't you embarrassed when you say that? The smile on Melody's face froze and her eyebrows raised. Let's not talk about age. You're still my master. Nash smiled and kept his mouth closed. Derek could not help but laugh too. He thought that the trusted descendants of the Youngs would have to behave like slaves in front of the Youngs. However, by the looks of it, Mr. Nash's attitude toward the descendants was as if they were real friends. Zeno glanced at his watch. It's already past 7 o'clock. It's almost rush hour soon. Why haven't they shown up yet? Derek frowned and said, Nico's mother isn't willing to let him go to Xanthalos. Miss Ophelia is trying to convince her now. He understood Zara's intentions better than anyone else. Her intentions were identical to his own mother. They did not want to let their children risk their lives. Nico drove out of the residential area in his Honda. Zara and Ophelia stood worriedly at the gate. Yasmin limped over with Margaret to the gate too. Their faces were stained with tears and worry. Melody whispered, Mr. Nash, are you not going down to reassure them? I can't make that promise. Nash understood what Melody meant. If he were to tell them that he would bring everyone back safely, they would feel more at ease. However, the tomb of the King of Medicine was full of undead corpses, death worms, and many unknown dangers. It was uncertain if everyone could make it out alive. Melody pursed her red lips. Aren't you afraid of death? Of course. Wealth and honor are predestined. Life and death are in the hands of fate. There is no one in this world who isn't afraid of death. The experts all crawl out from the gap between life and death. Chapter 384. Nash's words touched Melody. She could not imagine what Nash had gone through all these years. She wondered how many deaths did it take to shape who Nash was today. The two cars drove towards Xanthalos. Johnford was 15,000 kilometers away from Xanthalos. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Nash received a call from Brian. Grandmaster, old Mare had food poisoning. But he's fine now. Food poisoning? What did he eat? Nash asked in surprise. Some fungi. It should have been some poisonous mushrooms. The Mares are a second-class family, indeed. The cooks can't even tell the difference between safe and poisonous mushrooms, Nash sneered. Someone within the family might have tampered with the food. The situation with the Mares is rather complicated. Old Mare holds the power in the family so tightly. I suspect it's due to internal family conflict. Brian's response confirmed Nash's suspicions. Personal gain could make one lose sight of family. Tell Hera to not start any conflict with the Mares. Families competing for properties were very dangerous, and they were willing to do anything to win. Lauren had not returned to her family for decades. Her sudden return would inevitably arouse the suspicion of others. I'm afraid that's going to be difficult, Brian said with a wry smile. At the same time, at the Mare household in Capitan, more than 30 people were sitting in the luxurious villa's living room. Lauren's family was ridiculed and targeted by other families. You haven't been home for more than 20 years. The moment you heard that your grandfather was ill, you came rushing back. You're obviously back just for your share of the inheritance. That's right. I've seen people who are shameless but never to this extent. Not only is this shameless behavior, but it's simply despicable. Fortunately, old Mare was saved, otherwise, he wouldn't have found peace if he had died. A group of middle-aged people in gorgeous clothes were gossiping away. They were not loud, but their tones were extremely harsh. Lauren's face was as pale as paper. Have you said enough? Hera could not listen further, so she stood up and yelled at everyone. During her fight with Helena, she understood something. Weakness would not be shown mercy. Her mother was always strong when she fought with Hubert and the Lewises. However, when she arrived at the Mares, she was bullied into silence. Disrespectful brat. Do you have a right to speak here? As expected of Lauren's daughter, she's so self-centered and rebellious. Lauren, if you know better, then take your daughter and get out of here. The Mares have long had nothing to do with you. Hera's anger did not intimidate anyone but simply added fuel to the fire. The Mares are considered a prestigious and respected family. How is it that none of you have any sense of refinement or culture? Oh, I forgot. You're just women who were brought into the family. Hera looked at everyone with a sarcastic expression. In the Lewis household, her mother had always stood up to protect her. Now, it was Hera's turn to protect her mother. Harrison sneered. You bunch of self-righteous people really expect to be treated as a big deal for simply marrying into a rich family. Chapter 385. James could see through everything. Lauren's cousins who married into the family were from poor backgrounds. Only the partners of the women who were married off came from prominent families. Harrison was considered one of the outstanding ones among the mayor's sons-in-law. This gave Harrison the courage to stand up against the others. Harrison, watch your words. You're in the mayor's property now, not the Lewis's. A middle-aged man with an ashen complexion said in a deep voice. It was Lauren's eldest brother, Leonard. Uncle Leonard, I think that Uncle Harrison has a point. Aunt Lauren finally returned. It's fine that no one showed her any hospitality. However, everyone dares to verbally target her if word gets out. Aren't you just giving people a reason to laugh at us? Yvonne pouted as she defended her aunt. Leonard's wife, Minerva, said coldly, the adults are talking. Why is a brat like you speaking? James snorted. The mayors are talking. Why are you speaking? Minerva used to work in a foot massage parlor. Leonard had a drunken one-night stand with Minerva and got her pregnant. To prevent anyone from gossiping, he had no choice but to marry her. Old Mayor disliked Minerva the most. She was the last one who would have a say among the mayors. I'm Leonard's wife. My name is on our marriage certificate. How am I not part of the family? You, on the other hand, you were just adopted by Old Mayor. You're not related by blood or anything. What gives you the right to criticize me? Minerva snapped as she crossed her arms. James sneered. Leonard, do you share the same sentiment? Leonard gulped. At the end of the day, he had to recognize James as his brother. He knew James' temper very well. If Leonard dared to anger James, he would be taught a valuable lesson. That's enough, Minerva. Keep quiet. Leonard did not want to dwell on this topic anymore, so he said with a smile, Dr. Tanner cured Old Mayor's illness. We should be happy. I've made a reservation at Os Capitan Hotel to celebrate his recovery and give Liam and Lauren a warm welcome. I'm glad that the old man is fine, but we won't disturb your family reunion, one of Leonard's cousins said and left with his family. We're leaving too. If anything happens, remember to call us, another middle-aged man said. Not long after, Zeke's children were the only ones left in the villa. James then stared coldly at Leonard. Lincoln is stuck abroad, and Liam isn't married yet, so it'll be hard for him to gain a foothold in the family. After Lauren got married, she lost her right. They don't have any shares in their hands. Within your father's lineage, you're the only one who holds 5% of the shares, so you're the only one who gets a say. Do you really believe that you can handle the other 3 lineages by yourself? Zeke had 3 brothers. Each brother owned 20% of the mayor's shares, and the remaining 20% was held by the shareholders. The mayor family's shareholders meeting was composed of distant relatives, and each successive patriarch was elected by the shareholders meeting through a vote. Therefore, even if Zeke transferred his 20% share to Leonard, if this lineage did not work together in unity, the position of patriarch would only end up in the hands of the other lineages. You're right, James, Leonard mumbled half-heartedly, not taking James' words to heart. He had already considered this, but now there were 2 options in front of him. He could either bring Liam, Lincoln, and Lauren together and work together for the position of family head, or he could go his own way and take over the other 15% of his father's shares alone. Capitan's business world was in chaos. Even if they were reunited, they may not be able to bring high profits to the company. With the uncertainty of the outcome, it was unlikely for the others to vote for his lineage during the shareholders' meeting. Hence, he chose the latter option. He wanted to monopolize the entire 20% of the shares within his father's lineage. It was already the end of the day. At a rest area, Nash called Hira. Hira told Nash everything that happened during the day without forgetting to smugly take credit for her actions today. What do you think? I was pretty cool today, right? Hurry and praise me.